In eastern Poland, at the far edge of the European community, lies the enchanted forest of Bialowieza. Its 1,500 square kilometers along the border of Belarus are home to one of Europe's last primitive forests. Poland possesses 600 square kilometers of forest, of which 105 have been made into a national park. Parts of this forest are so dense that anyone venturing into them would be wise to enlist a guide like Janusz Kobel. A local ecologist, Janusz knows virtually every centimeter of the park. He keeps watch over thousands of plant species and over 12,000 animal species, including the wolf, lynx and bison.
You could call this place the wild heart of the Bialowieza Forest, since it's the epicenter of a virgin forest, an area that's not been transformed by man for hundreds of years, or at least for several decades. It's a bit off the beaten path, and it represents only 7% of Polish virgin forest, but it's really the wildest part of the forest. This is what an untouched forest looks like. This is what a forest looks like when it lives according to its own laws.
European forests were almost completely destroyed during the Middle Ages. Trees were cut down to build houses, to heat them, and to build ships. Almost all of the forests in Europe disappeared in order to pave the way for the big cities we know today, like Berlin and Paris. But hundreds of years ago, the forest of Bialowieza was still famous for its natural treasures, and it was kept as a royal hunting reserve until the 19th century. Because of this, it's miraculously preserved.
Nowhere else will you find such incredibly huge oak trees, ash trees, lime trees, or as many decaying trees, as well as the animals that live off them. Sometimes these animals are very tiny, like insects. This forest still follows its own 7,000-year timetable. Ironically, conservation of the Bialowieza forest has occurred to the detriment of its animals. The forest was once a hunting ground for Lithuanian princes, Polish kings, Russian tsars, even the Germans. Practically all the crowned heads of Europe have hunted here at one time or another. In the 16th century, the Polish king established the first nature decree in Europe. He outlawed chopping down any of the trees in his royal forest. It didn't do much for the animals he liked to hunt, but it protected the forest.
Although the kings of Poland contributed greatly to the protection of Bialowieza for decades, during World War I, some parts of the forest were heavily exploited. In 1932, a small part of the forest was given national park status. In the late 1970s, the park was declared a biosphere reserve and designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Over the last decade, Polish environmentalists from all over the world have been working to see the entire forest designated as a national park. Right now, we have 47 kilometers of strict reserve, where it's totally forbidden to hunt or even pick a flower. Nature is left alone here, but the animals that live here need more space. A wolf can cover 100 kilometers in one night, but when a wolf crosses over the border into Belarus, it could be shot. When birds or smaller animals leave this protected space, they immediately find themselves in potential conflict with people. Their natural habitats are under constant threat. This is just too small an area for so many animals to live.
Im dłużej chodzę po tym lesie,
The more I see this forest change, the less I understand it.
i wydaje mi się, że zrozumieć go jest w ogóle bardzo
I think
trudno.
it's very hard to grasp.
Aczkolwiek mamy pewne fragmenty procesu, który
We've uncovered some of the processes that take place here.
poznaje nauka. Poznaje oczywiście tylko małe
Some have been
wycinki.
explained by scientists,
Wiemy o tym, że tutaj zachodzą
but only a
cykle, które
few.
są znacznie dłuższe niż życie człowieka. Wiemy na przykład, że
we know that the life cycles in the forest take more time than a human
żadnego
lifespan.
człowieka leżące takie drzewo,
We also know that every species plays a vital role.
to był marnujący
A
się
dead
materiał.
tree might look like useless debris to us,
Pewnego czasu już
but
wiemy,
not to the
że ponad
species
połowa
that
wszystkich
depend on
gatunków,
this rotting
które
tree
żyją
for
w lesie,
survival.
związane są z martwym drzewem.
These trees decompose and return to the earth. A dead tree lying on the ground has created a living environment for lichen, insects, amphibians, and reptiles hidden under its trunk, as well as invisible microorganisms. The existence of countless insects depends on these dead trees. Some of these insects cannot be found anywhere else except in the virgin forest. And these insects provide food for other species. It's an endless biological chain.
Przyrodę chroni się. Właściwie to nie...
The idea of protecting nature is really misleading. I like to think of what Gandhi said when he was asked why he did so much for people. He said that he wasn't working for others, but for himself. For me, there's no difference. When we protect nature, we're protecting ourselves.
Jeżeli chronimy przyrodę, to chronimy ją dla siebie. Puszcza jest cały czas przekształcana.
The virgin forest is under constant transformation.
Więcej parku narodowego.
Although the size of the park and the reserve have recently been expanded, we're now at a turning point.
Stoimy przed takim okresem chyba właściwie kluczowym.
We're going to have to decide if this forest will remain untouched or if it should be opened up to the public.
Na przykład. Z jednej strony jest to szansa
On the one hand, it's a chance for growth.
Będą tu przyjeżdżały coraz
On the other,
większe rzesze.
if people start coming here in greater numbers, if we keep building hotels, if we don't put limits on how much development to allow, this forest will continue to change. It's already happening. This precious forest will become just another nature park, and its unique character, its biological wealth, will vanish.